Through the Defying the Flames, we carry on. While Briar might be a difficult matchup for us, a couple of the decks that look to beat Briar are actually pretty okay for Fi, so maybe there's a spot for him in the meta. Starting off our equipment, we're on Searing Emberblade and Bladeback in her helm. I saw a couple of Fi lists from last season running Kunai of Retribution and trying to do some super redline things, but with the direction I want to take the deck, so we can deal with things like Oldhim, we need a couple of blues, so we're on Searing Emberblade. We're still on the Tiger set because it blocks fairly well and lets us have a giant pop-off turn and go really wide, and also because all of the other ninja armor sucks in this format. I think the biggest difference maker from this season to last season is that now we're on 2 Phoenix Flames instead of 1. This enables us to go ahead and play the Flame Call Awakenings that we cut from the last list. These are super good at chipping in damage against the block slop decks that are all out to try to beat Briar right now. We are on 2 copies of Mounting Anger, and the best card in our deck, Fire That Burns Within. This is another card that benefits from us having multiple Phoenix Flames in our deck. It makes it a little bit easier to set up a big pop-off turn, and then also still get our +1 from the Phoenix Flame later on. Having increased the number of 1 cost to 6, I've also opted to bump up the number of resource cards we're playing. We're now on 7 blues and 2 yellows. This number of resource makers is still pretty light for a Fi deck, as a lot more are going to be closer to 10 or 11, but as a Ravenous Rabble enjoyer, I just can't stand flipping a yellow or a blue. Plus, the Tiger set is there to bail us out of any awkward draws. Rise from the Ashes has a lot more utility now that we've gone up on Phoenix Flames. It also works as an emergency starter. We're on 2 copies of Brand with Cinderclaw, 2 copies of Rising Resentment, and of course 2 copies of Ronin Renegade. On to our extenders, we're playing 2 Blaze Headlong, 2 Display Loyalty, and 2 Lava Vein Loyalty. Inflame the Firebrand more often than not comes in as a 0 for 4, making it like a pseudo Lava Burst, but in a worst case, it's a 0 for 2 Chain Extender. Speaking of Lava Burst, we're on 2 of that card, because 0 for 5 is really cool. For our non-draconic cards, we're on 2 Fire Tenant Strike first because it's a 0 for 4, Ravenous Rabble because it's a 0 for 4, and of course our 1 copy of Snatch. I'm sure there's a way I can bump this to 2, but my first instinct is to cut more blues, and I don't think we can afford to do that in this list. For our sideboard, we're running AB2. Honestly, the chess piece really only comes in against Blaze, but I think she's going to be pretty good this format, so we should definitely have this just in case. Since we have more blues to support our 1 cost now in the main board, we get to play Smoldering Scales, we get to bring this in against things like Icelander or Alexi, anything that's going to flip an Arctic Incarceration on us. 1 copy of Rake Over the Coals helps us push over the top of the block slop decks and make sure we actually kill them before we run out of cards. I've cut Arcane Polarity down to a 1 of. Drawing both at the same time was an absolute killer of my tempo, and when you're playing against a wizard who's trying to kill you as fast as possible, you can't afford to stumble. I'm playing a 2nd copy of Epot in the sideboard. I bring these in against matchups that are going to go long, so I can set up a big long chain where I get a free sword swing at some point. Lastly, I am on 4 copies of Wax On, 2 yellow and 2 red. Briar is probably the best deck in format, and as an aggro deck, we kind of just lose to her. This gives us a fighting chance though, and we can always high roller, so we're gonna play to our outs.